Okay. First, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I apologize for being so late. Our day has been late all along. It started out at Hugh Carey's funeral down at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, and it went longer than we thought, and so I've been late each time. But in all fairness, I'm even later than I was when we left the funeral late. Anyway, it's good to be here. I want to thank our great county executive, my friend, somebody I admire and think is a model county executive, Mike Hine. We also have Dr. Lamar Hasbrook, the Director of Public Health. Allison Morris, is she here? I guess not.
Yes.
Oh, good. Hi, Allison, from the Ulster County Health Department, and Vincent Martello right over there, who is Director of Community Health Relations. Now, I want to thank everyone for being here. You know, it's the summer, beautiful weather. Today is one of the most beautiful days anywhere in the country, right here in Ulster County. The temperature is perfect, the sky is beautiful, and we've been driving through the Hudson Valley all day, and it's been a pleasure. Anyway, so what does summer mean? It means hiking and camping and picnicking and all the great activities that Ulster County has to offer. But it also means we got to be really aware of little, very bad pests that are lurking in the weeds. And we're talking, of course, about ticks. Unfortunately, the Hudson Valley is infamous for these ticks. They don't come alone. They come with dangerous illnesses, particularly Lyme disease and another disease called babesiosis and other tick-borne diseases. Now, health professionals, researchers, veterinarians in the Hudson Valley all agree tick-borne illnesses have spiked in recent years. And I'm here today to push for a federal program to step up to the plate and squash this pesky problem, particularly here in Ulster County. And I'll be talking about that. Then I'll talk a little bit about the economy if anybody wants me to, because I know you have questions on that as well. But let me first talk about the tick illnesses. We all know that in the Hudson Valley, tick-borne illnesses have been a problem. A disease called, it's very hard to pronounce, babesiosis has become more prevalent and is expanding, but at the same time, Lyme disease is growing as well. Health officials will tell you, patients who have been bitten by a tick should ask their doctor for a test for Lyme disease and babesiosis. These tests can be done at the exact same time, and they're going to help Ulster County better track the numbers as they relate to this illness. But Lyme disease is really serious. 20,000 Americans are affected by Lyme disease. And the interesting and underlining thing about Lyme disease is it's very curable in its early stages, but it's often difficult to detect and goes unnoticed. Left untreated, Lyme disease can lead to serious skin, cardiac, neurological, and arthritic problems. And if you don't detect it early, the likelihood of these serious problems growing is much, much worse. Worst of all, in Ulster County, this year for the first time, there are going to be more cases of Lyme disease than any other county in all of upstate New York. So it's growing here in Ulster County. According to the New York State Department of Health, Ulster County experienced a Lyme disease rate of 201 per 100,000. That's the highest rate in the Hudson Valley. Let me give you comparisons. It's 193 in Sullivan, in the Catskills, 176 in Dutchess, 172 in Putnam, 173 in Orange, 81 in Rockland, and 42 in Westchester. So unfortunately, Ulster County has become the epicenter of Lyme disease in New York. And I am committing, along with County Executive Hine, to fight back. Here's what we're going to do about it. There's legislation called the Lyme and Tick-Borne Disease Prevention, Education, and Research Act, which would take major steps to protect families in the Hudson Valley from this creepy pest. It has a three-pronged approach: public education, boosting research, and healthcare training. And probably most important is public education, because Lyme disease, if you detect it early, can be dealt with. I know. I got Lyme disease here in the Hudson Valley. I was with former Congressman John Hall. We were looking at dams in Dutchess County. We have a lot of old dams here in the Hudson Valley that have blocked waterways but are old. And if they were to break, they'd flood lots of homes. So as we trekked up to one of these dams, I was bitten by a tick. Fortunately, a day later, I was able to recognize the bullseye that Lyme disease ticks create. I called my doctor, I got a 14-day treatment of the proper medication, and the Lyme disease vanished. But if I hadn't known what to look for, I could have gotten very serious Lyme disease, and for too many people, that happens. So the first thing that this legislation does, and the first thing we're trying to do, is educate people how to check for ticks. If your kid is even running in your backyard barefoot, when he comes in, just check. And there are easy signs. They're on my website. They're probably on the Health Department of Ulster County's website, of what to look for and of the telltale bullseye if, God forbid, you're bitten by a tick that has Lyme disease. If we can educate Ulster County residents about this problem, which is growing larger and larger and larger, we can prevent very many from getting the more serious forms of the disease. So we need public awareness campaigns, we need screening days at local health centers, and this kind of thing is very important. The second thing that the legislation would do is come up with research. Research, we do have medications that deal with it in the early stages, but the medications that deal with it in the later stages, as well as research as to how to prevent it from beginning at all, is still not enough. We don't do enough. And so just as we do research for cancer and for heart disease, we take some of the research funding that this federal government does and increase it for Lyme disease. And finally, the third part of the legislation is to let physician and nurse awareness of the disease so that they can educate their patients when they see them, again, about what to do and what to look for. So there's special training for doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals so that they can know what to look for, number one, and alert potential problems, alert people to potential problems. If we can do these three things, we can prevent Lyme disease from growing here in Ulster County. We can make sure that people are safer, and it's something that's really important to the future health of people in this country. Now, do you want me to talk about the economy, or let's finish Lyme disease and then I'll talk about the economy? How's that? So I'm going to call on County Executive Mike Hine, who works with me on this problem as on many others extremely closely. Mike.
Thank you very much. Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you to the Senator. He has been obviously an enormous champion for the people of Ulster County and all of New York State. But on this particular issue in particular, we're talking about a commitment to a piece of legislation that's going to directly benefit the people of Ulster County. As we strive to have this wonderful goal of becoming the healthiest county in all of New York State, clearly Lyme disease is something that we're going to have to tackle as well. You know, if you look around on this beautiful day, you can just imagine how many wonderful things there are to do in Ulster County outside. Hiking, camping, fishing, so many different wonderful opportunities available for the citizens of Ulster County. There are some basic steps that can be taken. And with a little bit of vigilance, we can be sure that you're not exposed to Lyme disease. That said, if you are bitten, there are also tools available from Ulster County right here, right now. At the health department, we have tick removal kits, free of charge for anyone. In addition to that, they look just like this, by the way. In addition to that, we have the same kits available at town clerk's offices throughout all of Ulster County.
Here we go. Very good. Be tick free. That's what it says right here. And it tells people what to do. That's great.
This is just an initial step on our part to be able to assist in this process, because this is going to be a collective effort. But we can't say thank you enough for the Senator and for his efforts to be able to address this issue here and now, right when we very well need it. Again, as Ulster County strives to become the healthiest county in all of New York, this is just one of the many efforts that we're going to be making. Again, the real tip of the hat is to the Senator here, and I'd like to ask Dr. Lamar Hasbrook, the Director of Public Health, to join me at this point to be able to talk of some of the specifics in front of us in our efforts. Doctor?
Go ahead, Doctor.
Thank you, Senator, for lending your voice to this very important issue. to Mike Hine, who's been a champion for the whole spectrum of health concerns and health priorities here in Ulster County. Much of the information has been relayed to you already. I just wanted to share just a few take-home points that I wanted to emphasize. Number one, we may be standing in the epicenter of the Lyme disease problem right here in Ulster County. Our rates are higher than those in Dutchess for the first time in many, many years. But there are a number of caveats that might explain the increased rates. And these are rates, not gross numbers. One is that there may be more infected ticks here in Ulster County. So that's a real possibility. Another explanation may be that we are doing a better job actually in terms of our vigilance in finding it. That's right. We refer to that as a surveillance bias. The more you look for it, the more vigilant you look for it, the more cases you can find. In addition, the state has expanded the case definition of what Lyme disease is. So whenever you broaden the definition, you're liable to pick up more cases. But my worst fear is the worst case scenario, and that is that we have let our guard down here in Ulster County. And so we have to stick to those prevention messages and those prevention strategies.
He agrees.
One little known fact is that even in an endemic area such as Ulster County in the Hudson Valley, where Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases like babesiosis and ehrlichiosis are common, folks who get bitten by a tick, there's only a 1 to 2 to 3% chance that folks that are bitten by a tick will actually go ahead and develop Lyme disease. Now try telling that to somebody that's been suffering from it or from the long-term, consequences of it. It's going to be hard to convince them. But what that means basically is that we have to continue doing what we're doing here at the health department. We can identify ticks for the community free of charge. As Mike mentioned, we have tick removal kits, again, free of charge. We have doubled our efforts in terms of education out to the schools and the health fairs and the like. We have an ad campaign that's on the horizon that's going to be helping folks to stay tick-free. So we're going to do our part. But at the end of the day, there's three main strategies to reduce the impact of getting a tick-borne illness. The first one is environmental. So the environmental strategies include things like controlling deer population, tick population, clearing the brush around your house, and other things like that. Then there's the medical strategy. Medical includes the antibiotics that the senator mentioned, which again are going to be effective after you've been bitten, so that's kind of after the fact. The most important strategy is the personal accountability that we can all take. So again, I want to say that we're going to do what we can do at the health department, but at the end of the day, the residents in Ulster County and in the Hudson Valley have to be very vigilant in doing those tick checks and keeping their family members themselves and their pets out of harm's way. Thank you.
Great. Good job, Doctor. Okay, we're ready for your questions on this subject, and then we'll go to other subjects.